Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Bible teaching snippet of the day. Look, I didn't get dolled up for you today. I'm doing yard work and housework, so you just got to roll with the girl with the way she looks today, okay? But I do want to do a snippet today. I've had several people ask me questions about my last snippet. Let me say this. I know that what I was teaching on as far as the blood covenant and the feast and stuff, that's a little bit deeper than I usually like to go when I'm teaching a 5 to 7, 8 minute teaching. But I do want you to understand this. Every Old Testament type and shadow and prophecy was fulfilled by Jesus. A type and shadow is something that they would do just mirroring in the physical what Jesus would soon come to fulfill at some point when he was born into the earth. So all of the different sacrifices and ceremonies and things that God's people, the children of Israel and the priesthood would do in the tabernacles and in the Holy of Holies would represent acts that Jesus would fulfill and set a permanent answer to. So I guess let me say it like this. The types and shadows was just a foreshadowing of the real thing that would come. And Jesus is what we call the real thing. Okay, so let me say this. The Passover lamb was us in the Old Testament, was the children of Israel being freed from slavery or bondage. Jesus, our Passover lamb, would free us from the bondage and slavery of sin, okay? And you can find that in Exodus 12:23, that type and shadow. But over in Leviticus chapter 16, and if you start in verse 5 and go all the way through 22, you see where they had the two goats. And you would have, the priest would pull lots to determine which goat would be killed and the blood used on the mercy seat as a covering for 1 year. And the other goat would be used as a scapegoat. That's actually where we get the word, he's an scapegoat. An scapegoat is actually a goat that was completely innocent, but he carried away the guilt of the people. That's where we get the word scapegoat. So in the Bible, they used a scapegoat to carry the sins of the people away for that year. And every year they would have to keep repeating that. But after Jesus and what he did through his death, burial, resurrection, his finished work, they no longer need a Passover lamb to free them from bondage, because Jesus freed us from our bondage of sin. We no longer need the two goats, because Jesus was the fulfillment of both goats. He would actually pour his own blood on the mercy seat and cleanse heaven, the real mercy seat of man's sin. And he would also have all of man's sin put on him, and he would be the scapegoat, the guilty. He would carry the guilt of man away. I have an article here that I really like, and I'm not real familiar with this website, but I do like this one article. And for those of you that want it, I can post it, but I want to say this. Down here in his article, he's talking about how the word a scapegoat is actually the word Azazel, A-Z-Z-E-L-L or something like that. And what that meant was to take out, here it is, I got it, A-Z-A-Z-E-L. And the meaning of it was the goat of departure. So what he would do is in this type and shadow, is he is sending back out into the wilderness the guilt of all the people on this goat. And that's what God did with Jesus. He put the guilt of all man on him and sent it away with Jesus. So I've explained that. So what Jesus would have done in his death, burial, and resurrection, he would be the sin offering goat that would sprinkle his own blood on the mercy seat. He would also act as the scapegoat to carry away man's guilt of sin. The Passover lamb would give us freedom from that sin and slavery and us being in bondage to sin. And the last thing I talked about on my last snippet was that Jesus, when he told Mary, "Do not touch me," he wasn't acting as the Passover lamb or the goat with the blood of the mercy seat, because he had already done that, okay? He did that when he died on the cross, and he literally sprinkled his own blood in heaven over the mercy seat in heaven while he was on the cross and carried into the tomb later. But the first fruit of harvest, when he said, "Do not touch me," what that is, it is the first fruit of the harvest festival. And I explained how the priest would cut that head of wheat off and take it into the Holy of Holies and present it to God. And watch this. Jesus is the first fruit of the living. He's the first one who would be in a human but immortal body, and he would go and present himself to God and be accepted to God. And then he could come back to earth and be an example and that first one who would be accepted, because we as believers and Christians, when we're resurrected like Jesus is resurrected, we too will be immortal. So Jesus was the first fruit of many who are sons and daughters born of God, who would be resurrected in an immortal body. I hope I've helped you with that, and I've answered everybody's questions. But I'm going to tell you, I've got this little article, and it's really interesting, but most people don't really want to study that deep. And look, it's okay, you don't have to. The gospel's really simple, guys. But it's just wonderful how God weaves everything into Scripture and makes it work out. So again, this Blood Covenant book is really, really good. One of my favorites is this right here. This guy did an awesome job of writing about all of the different feasts and how that Jesus was the first fruit of the harvest, which is the first fruit of the living, the resurrected. So God bless you guys, and on Monday when I come back, I'm going to talk a little bit more. I've got a picture of Jesus' crucifixion, and I just want to go through that, and then I'm going to wrap up talking about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, because I've got a few more subjects that I want to talk to you about. So God bless you. I love you. I hope you have an awesome day tomorrow, and I'll see you again right here on Facebook. Bye-bye.